There's weird stuff floating on top of my brew. What is it? Don't worry, that's totally normal. We call that Krausen or yeast rafts, depending on what you're making and what stage of the brew you're in. But usually the yeast and the carbon dioxide are kind of pulling stuff up from the bottom, and it sits on top because all those little carbon dioxide bubbles are pushing it up. Krausen is generally just slop left over from the beer making process. Yeast rafts generally involve kind of a combination of yeast and pectins and other proteins that kind of coagulate together and can rise to the top too. All totally normal, and eventually it'll all drop out to the bottom and you can rack off without transferring anything over to your next vessel. Now there are some troubling things. Mold, for example, it'll be fuzzy, it'll be in little blobs, and it'll be firm. You can scoop mold out with a spoon. If you've got mold in your brew, dump it out. You don't want to risk getting sick from mycotoxins. Now, if it's like a thin white film, maybe a little blobby or a little stringy or a little snotty, that's called a pellicle, and that's a sign of a wild yeast infection or a bacterial infection. Generally, it's going to create some new flavors or textures in there. Sometimes they're pleasant, sometimes they're not, but it's worth riding it out to see what happens. A pellicle is not necessarily a sign that you need to dump it just yet. If you have a pellicle and don't want one, that's a great time to sprinkle some metabisulfite across the top to try and knock that pellicle out. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. Always helpful to rack it to a new container from underneath that pellicle and then sprinkle in that metabisulfite as kind of a 1-2 punch trying to knock that pellicle out. And then you want to clean and sanitize everything before you start your next batch. If you were brewing in plastic or had plastic tools that touched something that got infected, there is a strong likelihood that that infection will carry over, especially if it was mold. Generally, I recommend that if you had plastic gear that touched an infected brew, get rid of that plastic. Micro scratches in the plastic can hold on to that infection and then infect your next brew, even if you've cleaned and sanitized everything. Better safe than sorry. Remember, the environment inside your fermenter is its own tiny ecosystem, so you want to treat it right. Keep things clean and sanitize so that the right microbes win out every time.